The James Dolan Roommates podcast. Let's get into it, man. Back by popular demand, the reaction show. You guys wanted to hear about it. So, let's get into it, man. This was James Dolan on the Roommates pod. I ended up getting the YouTube premiere so we could skip through the commercials. So, this was the first topic. James Dolan sitting down with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. Let me make sure I got my volume proper so we could, do this properly here. All right, this is the first topic on Player Podcast. Here we go.
I do have a question for you. With light of podcasts, being a hot topic in the NBA the last couple of days, what was your initial thoughts when you learned JB and myself were creating a podcast?
Oh, I don't know. I thought it was fine. You guys are, your personalities, right? People want to know what you're thinking, right? They see what you do, right? So they want to hear what you think and what your take is. I think your fans, love it. You got a lot of people who listen to this, don't they? We aren't just doing this for us, right?
Yeah.
I think those fans, they're like any other fans. They want to identify with you. They want to, they hear you say something and they latch onto it. I know what that is. That happened to me when I was a kid too, right? Something like that. And that's what fans want. They want closeness. They want to be able to identify with you. So it's totally cool. As long as it doesn't take away from practice, hitting your threes and your free throws. No.
I think I'm having a career year from the free throw line. I will say that.
Really?
Career period.
Period.
All right, so I'm going to pause that. So that was Dolan basically saying, hey, listen, I have no issues with it. And this was Jalen Brunson's reaction to it. They played the Perkins soundbite that we reacted to on Worst Take a couple weeks ago. So here's Brunson's reaction to Perkins' comments that Brunson and Josh should put the pod down. Here's Brunson.
Much worse things.
Let me go back a little bit. Right here.
You're moving around this.
So I'm going to say this. There are much worse things you could be doing than having a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that go on, right, that are much worse than sitting here and talking with you guys about stuff or whatever. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Y'all can drag that. Y'all can figure out whatever y'all want to figure out, but
yeah, my thing, I think it's funny because we can sit there, we can be talking about somebody, and they can be like, "Man, this dude," like someone tweets about a reporter, be like, "Yeah, he said he was at home just kicking it, playing video games for 4 hours." No one bats an eye. Oh, he played video games for 4 hours. Cool.
I think I agree. There are times of that, but I feel like, as a professional athlete, when you're caught or when you're like posting about something that's other than your profession, like your main thing, like remember everyone kept saying, oh, whenever the new Call of Duty comes out, Kyler Murray is not as locked in, right? So now he has that narrative on him, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
There are players like Harden, like who's known for going out, like, right? It's a known thing. Like, there's, no matter what you do, if it's not your profession, someone's gonna be saying something like, you need to be focusing on your profession. Like, I put my heart, blood, and tears into this, right? I'm gonna go crazy if this is the only thing I think about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put myself through hell. Right? I need some type of getaway. Sometimes we golf, right? During the playoffs, now we're like, all right, during the series, we're not talking about this. Whatever. After this series, we can have a check-in. All right. But like I just find it funny how like we're supposed to just like go to the gym, come home, just sit on the couch and just like wait for the next day.
All right. So that was the captain. And look, that last part right there that's good for me. During the playoffs, when you're in the midst of the battle, put it to the side. when you're done with the round, all right, you want to jump on, recap, whatever. You want to get Tracy Morgan in there, Kaka and Kiki it up. Okay, cool. But that was what, you remember when me and JD talked about it, that's what I said. Like, when the playoff time comes, put it to the side. And it's not because, at least from my perspective, I can't speak for anybody else. It's not because, they shouldn't have an outlet, because absolutely they should. We're all human. We all should have our outlets. Their investment in the pod in terms of time is really negligible when you think about all the other things that they have to do. Remember, even during the playoffs, I'm sure these guys still have promotional responsibilities, marketing responsibilities, community service stuff that they probably got to do, maybe to a lighter extent. So I don't think the podcast is that big of a deal. However, in this state of increased expectations, the optics, you always got to think about the optics. And Dolan, Dolan's not going to say that to them. But Dolan, of all people, should know, who runs an operation that is very tight on PR and how things look. You got to be cognizant of that. You do whatever you want to do when you're done practicing in your off time. But, if you're going up against Detroit and Cade is busting your ass and you're down 3-2, yeah, keep Vinny from Sopranos. We'll reschedule with you. That's all. But the captain did address that, and I thought he said it the correct way. Playoff time, put it to the side. When it's over with, we do a little recap. So there you go. What do you guys think in the chat? Leave some comments in there. So that was them on the podcast thing. This was an interesting comment just from Dolan on the whole. They get into a lot of, state of the team and where things are, but I like this overall comment from Dolan in regards to the Player Podcast and just in terms of how he feels the team should be operating. Here's his comment here.
Is that, I think we have a team that's going to be together for a while, right? Mm-hmm. Leon's done a good job, right, of he's lined up the contracts and everything else. So this team's this isn't our only season. And it's not, so we're going to play a bunch of seasons together, right? And you take a look at teams like Boston, right? That have played together, mm-hmm. right, et cetera, and they get to draw off of something that they built over that period of time. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, for this team, right, that's the challenge really like today, right? Going into the playoffs, et cetera, is to build that inside of the team, something we can draw on, mm-hmm. something that and I think that in order to do that, first thing you have to have is a belief that you can win, mm-hmm. that you can win any game, that you can win the championship. You really, really believe that, right? Then you aren't going to worry about podcasts, right? You're going to worry about how you're playing with the other guys, how you're running a play, how you're how the communication is going, et cetera. What you can do that will be even better, right? I mean, with Mitch coming in, there's a lot that still can be done. Yep. So I expect to see maybe some more alley-oops, right? But it changes the defense. So how are we going to rework the defense? I think this team, and everybody on it focuses on those things and just give them time, right? And I think it will happen.
Yeah, he said a lot there. Let's unpack. He said Leon is doing a good job. Vote of confidence for Leon. Okay? He has a long-term, at least, long-ish term in terms of how this thing is being built. He's got confidence in Leon. He pointed to the Celtics, how long it took them to get their chip together with Tatum and Brown. It took them, 6 to 8 years. A lot of tinkering with the lineups, with the rosters, from Kemba to Kyrie to Drew Holiday to this, that, and third. A lot of guys came in and out of that Boston rotation. Marcus Smart, Marcus Morris. Brad Stevens to Udoka to Mazzulla. So Dolan understands that the foundation has to be built and you got to let it marinate. And what he say? We're going to be doing this thing for a while. Now, some of you still might not be coming along for the ride long term, Julius. But with a core, we're going to tinker around that core until we get this thing right. So Dolan is in this thing for the long haul, I believe. And with the job that Leon is doing right now, I think he believes in it. Now, he talked about Mitch. I'm with him. We need more Gotham lobs to the Block Ness Monster. For some reason, JB can't find Mitch for the Gotham lob. Some of you guys like to see, the simulation is flying all over the place in Milwaukee right now. We'd like to see that here with the Block Ness Monster. And like you said, defensively, things can improve. So I thought those were pretty interesting sound bites there from James Dolan. Now, here is the next part. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. CP the Franchise here. Hit that thumbs up button for you boys. We are reacting to the Roommates pod, the James Dolan interview. It's a good job so far by James Dolan. And I think overall, this was a good setting for him to get a little bit more popular with the fan base. His reputation has been through the mud over the last 20 years between the decisions and the force himself on the trade, getting too involved. Your reputation precedes you. And I thought this was a better setting. Like the last time he was interviewed, it was on the Michael K show. He's bringing a clipboard with the prepared notes. He didn't come off as fluid. I like this setting that he did with the captain and Josh Hart. And he sounded pretty good. I thought he came out well on this one. But here he goes on the expectations. Here we go.
The smartest way to hire.
I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, on other episodes of the podcast of like, this is, like I said, you, Leon, have done a great job of putting the team together. And now it's time to mesh. And, in New York, there's so much excitement. Sometimes you just want it now. But they'll realize, like, this is
You think New Yorkers are like that?
Yeah, exactly. But this is something that, like you said, is the first year, and we're going to continue to build. And I think that's like, it takes time to everyone to mesh, and especially, with Cat coming in, right before training camp. It's not like we had a whole summer to, connect with him and build camaraderie with him. So it was relatively new. So
he didn't even practice the first couple of practices because the trade hadn't gone through yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, that put us. I don't want to say put us behind the 8 ball, but like it delayed us a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you still came out of the box pretty hot.
Yeah.
I thought you did.
It was.
I mean, there were games where we looked like, all right, this team's gonna be good, and there were games where like, all right, what are we doing? I think we started I think we're 5-6 at one point.
Was that when the Utah loss? Was that early? Like that first 10, 15 games?
Yeah, probably. I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Also couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
The elevation?
Yeah, going to Utah is never a fun game. But it was like, they were in that first 10, 15 games, like you could see like there were spurts where it was like, okay, we see what we kind of have, but like they just weren't consistent throughout. And the consistency is the one that takes the time. Everyone just sees the spurts and they're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. But it's like, it takes time. It takes going through adversity to build that connectiveness. And
So I think the fans see it, a little like you see it. I mean, they don't have to do what you have to do, right? But I think they see it, right? And they see that. That's why I think they're so excited, right? And yes, they want it yesterday. Right?
I mean, you said it in the last show, but this feels, at least to you guys, like the first season in a little while where there's been like real expectations. And obviously you're feeling kind of like the double-edged nature of that sword, right? The good and the bad.
Right.
It's like when you guys win a few games, it's like the Knicks are contenders. You lose a few games, the Knicks are fraud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But like I said, like you can't, either you listen to both and like you internalize it, or like you block out both. Like you can't just listen to the positive and think, oh, I'm not going to listen to the negative. It doesn't work like that because you're going to.
All right, so That was them talking about the expectations of this year. And Dolan said, hey, listen, the fans have been enjoying the journey. Well, James, sure, yeah, in the beginning. But that's game number 62. Boy, oh boy, pressure is busting pipes. But it's just like these guys said, you know, at this first sign of a winning streak, it's this team is it. We're in the right direction. We just got to get Mitch back and a couple of bench. We're right. And then a couple losing games, losing streaks. All hell is breaking loose. They're never going to win it. Leon destroyed the team. Tibbs stinks. Tibbs stinks. It's all over the place. So, yeah, to Matt's point, I think some fans are still enjoying the journey, but the expectations is putting a lot of pressure on this fan base, man. A lot of pressure. I still think they're in a great spot, man. This is just year one of the journey, man. So you still got to enjoy it. What do you guys think, man? What do you guys think about the expectations and the way that this season has been going? 66 games in at the time of this recording. So to everybody in the chat, once again, hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. Next weekly episode 122 presented by Manscaped. We are reacting to the James Dolan interview on the Roomates podcast. Okay, so that was that on the expectations. Now, this was an interesting convo with James Dolan as they talked about that's different mindsets between him and the Rangers. Dynasties with the new rules in the NBA with the second aprons and things of that nature. They were asking him about, you know, how's it different in terms of running the Knicks and running the Rangers. Dolan's main take was that in hockey, you just have to deal with the hard cap. But in the NBA, it's a little bit more difficult. So then they get into the conversation of dynasties, and I thought this one was pretty interesting. Here we go.
They just don't ever get there.
Do you feel like the implementation of the two aprons helps in that sense, and that it makes it really hard to have a dynasty over 5 years because of how expensive it is?
Oh, I think it's hard to have a dynasty over 5 years. Yeah.
It's been like,
I mean, this is not somebody who's speaking from experience. I'd be happy to have a dynasty for 1 year at this point.
I feel that.
How about this year or next year?
Yeah.
I would like there hasn't been a repeat champion in what, since the Warriors?
That's the Warriors, yeah.
That's the Warriors,
It's
right?
been different teams and winning every year. So I mean, it keeps it interesting. I just think that
And there's different
It's a
ways
totally
to
different
develop
ballgame.
a team too. I mean, that's part of what you see. I mean, like our team approach, right? Is much more what I would call a team approach, right? Whereas, you know, I mean, you take a look at like Golden State or Denver, it's basically 2-3 players at the most, right? And then everything else switches out over time, right? It's those 2 or 3 guys are the team, and I think with our team, I mean, it's whole team. I always loved the old Detroit team. You know, they had great players, but no superstars, no superstars, right? I mean, you know, and they won a championship, and the way they won that championship was team play, right? I mean, the way they passed that ball was amazing.
you think about 04. It was like Chauncey Billups,
Chauncey Billups,
Ben
right?
Wallace,
That-
Rip
that-
Hamilton.
that-
Ben Wallace,
Okay.
Tayshaun
Okay.
Prince,
Yes,
Rip
right.
Hamilton.
That team,
Yeah.
right? Who was the coach? Was
This is Larry Brown.
Larry Brown, right? That team when they played, I mean, and I think they, you know, I mean, just the way they played, they had 5 guys on the floor, you know, and all 5, right? It wasn't feeding all one guy, etc.
So
So what was so funny about this was he was like, yo, yeah, the Detroit team was so good. I liked them. And then he goes, who was the coach? James, you hired the coach. Because things were so bad in New York that Jimmy D said, I need to go get Larry Brown from the Detroit Pistons to turn this roster that Isaiah has no idea what he's doing with into some sort of competent team. So they went out and got Larry Brown. So I thought that was funny. He was like, who's the coach again? Yes, Mr. Dolan. It was Larry Brown, the guy who you went after, and who came in and left in disgrace. But look, this is the thing. When people are like, man, Dolan, he ruins a team. Who remember? This was back in 2005, 2006. Who would have really thought that going out and getting Larry Brown was a bad idea? I thought this was the best thing that he could have done. We're going to get defense in here. We're going to get Larry Brown and Coach Marbury up, and we're going to be running and gunning. I thought this was brilliant. And it turned out to be a disaster to where the guy didn't last more than 1 year. Dolan packed his bags up and did not want to pay him the $40 million left of his contract. He goes 23-59 with the Knicks. This was an article from Howard Beck at the time. The Knicks hired Brown with considerable fanfare and optimism last July. Although they kept expectations modest, team officials figured Brown, who was both NCAA and NBA championships, would reverse a half-decade of failure. But instead, he exacerbated the franchise's misery. Dolan wanted specific assurances from Brown that he would change his behavior because he would go out into the media, losing games by the dozen, alienating his players, and engaging in a public war of words with Stephon Marbury. Shout out to Steph, friend of the program. When Brown wavered, Dolan decided to fire him. So that was pretty brutal. And remember this comment from Channing Frye on the Larry Brown situation. Remember this comment here from Channing Frye. Let's play this. Here we go.
Cocky little 22-year-old.
Hold on. I gotta refresh this. Hold on. Here we go.
Team so dysfunctional. You would tell me, Channing, you're doing great. You're gonna get some minutes, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd be ready, and then I wouldn't play the whole game. We had the most starting lineups in the history of the league. 40 starting lineup. There were games where we didn't even know who was starting with 30 minutes left to go on the clock. I started to be like a face-up jump shooter, do my thing. Mm-hmm. I remember the day after I scored 30 on the number one pick, Andrew Bogut, who had a great career. Obviously, I had a thing because I was like, I should have been the number one pick, right? Cocky little 22-year-old. Yeah. I had 30 that day on jumpers. I was moving, I was shaking. So the next practice, coach goes, Channing, you can't shoot any more jumpers. Everyone on the team was like, don't listen to him. He's just saying it. He was like, no. If you shoot a jumper, you're going to go sit on the side. David Lee is guarding me. He backs up 5 feet. I dribble and kick the ball out. He goes, good job, son. I have never been a part.
So that was Channing Frye breaking it down. This was an old clip. This clip went viral. This clip went super viral on Instagram. 11,000.2 likes on this one. This was back in June. This was actually a repost on Instagram. And so that was Channing Frye ripping Larry Brown. And then Steph jumped in the comment section and said, Larry Brown thought he was the master who whipped people's asses if they didn't do what he said, or he would become a source in the newspaper spreading nonsense to people like Stephen A. Smith, his son. And that got 843 likes on Instagram. Shout out to Steph for his engagement and commentary on the matter. Hey, man, sometimes things just don't work out. They just don't work out. I thought Dolan's, his intentions were good in terms of the Larry Brown situation. Sometimes it just don't work out. Like, who thought that was going to be a bad idea when they got him? Sometimes it just don't work out, man. So I thought that was funny. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, here we go. This is still on the team building front. Let me make sure I got this. Is this it? Team building. No. Okay. All right. Here we go. Still on the team building front. This is Dolan on the current state. Here we go.
Feeding all one guy, etc.
So I'm talking about building teams. Obviously, this summer was an active summer for us. So what goes through your mind when it's like, okay, here's time to really make a push to make these moves to enhance the team?
Well, look, it's all Leon, right? Mm-hmm. I am not the architect of this team. Leon Rose is the architect of the team. You know, him and coach and Wes is in there too, right? But they come to me, right, and when they first started and they had an idea of what they could do, and they said, this is what we're going to try and do, and they keep coming back and say, well, we're modifying this or doing this.
Notice he said Leon, Wes, and coach. And coach. Okay.
Et cetera. But, you know, mostly I'm signing the checks, right? And,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank the fans. They're the ones that let me do it. But the other thing I sort of do with, you know, both hockey and with basketball is to say, okay, here's what you told me last year. Here's what you're telling me this year. Mm-hmm. How do the two jibe with each other? Are you making a significant change? Why are you doing it? It doesn't mean you can't, right? But I will sort of hold them to their plan, right? It's been really easy with Leon. He didn't really veer off the plan at all. Mm-hmm. You know, he just looked for opportunities. But I mean, in the end, we're together on it, right? Mm-hmm. And we go forward. And I think, you know, it's like I said before. I mean, this team's going to be together for a while now. They've architected it that way, and I think, you know, now we work on the team has to work with the coach and develop, you know, familiarity, right? That extra gear, right, that comes from knowing each other and playing with each other for so long, right? That, you know, that's what we wanted to see happen.
But have you always been that way when it comes to?
So we'll break that up and we'll get back to this. He said Leon, Wes, and coach, they came as a package deal. Doesn't mean the coach is Teflon Don. Don't get me wrong, because anything can happen here. And even last year, I don't know how close they were to pushing him out, but they sent a warning. He got him back to the playoffs. He got his extension. They're in it lockstep. It's a family deal. And Dolan says, as long as we're going according to plan, things are going well right now. He's locked in. They've got the plan. Now it's up to the players to connect with the coach. That's what he's saying. You guys be the judge. And, hey, he said Leon was doing a good job. And I think he is so far. So here's Jalen asking Brunson, have you always been that way? Here we go.
Like letting the GM or the president do whatever they want to do. Like since the time you took over to like now, has it always been that way? Or
no. I had to learn along the way. We want to go over that, really?
You don't have to. You don't have to. Hey, like I said, this is your show. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I mean, there were times when you know, sort of reach for that shiny, sparkly object, right? Mm-hmm. They said maybe this is what we need. Especially
Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson. Terrible. Phil just wanted the bag, but go ahead.
Especially when things were not going well, right? Let's bring in this guy and maybe he'll turn it all around for us. Sometimes it's a player, sometimes it's a coach, right, et cetera. And you know, what I've learned over time is that doesn't work. No, it really doesn't, right? You really have to do the fundamentals, the basics. You got to build the team. You got to build the organization, right? It does not. There is no, you know, waving the wand over a team and making it, you know, all of a sudden a great team. It doesn't happen.
Was there ever a trade?
All right, we're gonna get to that part on the trade. Look, this was good. This was good awareness and good reflection by Dolan. We don't have to rehash on all the previous bad moves that were made in the organization, but those who are fans of the organization know that the 20 years prior to this, it was basically slapping lipstick on a pig. He was trusting of Isaiah for a while until Isaiah ran this thing into the ground. Mortgage in the future. And, you know, to be honest, like, I wasn't mad at some of the moves that Isaiah made. Like, I loved when Steph came here. I love when Jamal Crawford came here. I love when he took a gamble on a young Eddie Curry. Like, I like those moves. I like when he went out and got Zebo. I like those moves. I hated to see Francis trade. Like, you know, some Mo Taylor, paying Mo Taylor and all of that. Those are bad things. Again, we don't need to rehash, but Dolan trusted him. He put the faith in Isaiah. But then they went out, they got Larry Brown. Not a bad thing. Turned out to be terrible. Later on, they went out and got D'Antoni. Again, coming off of Phoenix, D'Antoni wasn't a bad thing. They made the playoffs when D'Antoni got here. You had the Linsanity run. So there were some positives. I didn't like how D'Antoni treated Steph. I hated that. See, Steph came into camp in the best shape of his life, and D'Antoni alienated him. Hated that. Definitely froze out Steph. You know, the bad drafts and all of that. So he's made his mistakes. The Phil thing, complete disaster. He got desperate. Phil just wanted the bag, and it was a complete disaster. But I did like the fact that Dolan corrected that mistake fast. He showed him the door. The fans got out there. They started protesting. Showed him the door quick. Steve Mills, another trusted advisor, wasn't getting it done. The Kristaps thing kind of put a blunder on the organization again. You had the Melo trade situation with Donnie Walsh, like a lot of things. But I say all that to say he's trusting Leon's process. Leon so far has done a good job in terms of putting the team together, I think, so far. Now, we'll see what's up with the Bridges trade and the Towns trade and where that gets them. But remember, you're trying to win a championship. And the one thing, though, with Dolan is that he's not really draft focused. And I'll get to more of that when he talks about how he met with Leon and them. But I think in the process, given that, you know, RJ wasn't bringing them much in terms of championship pedigree, Obi wasn't either. They had to flip those guys. They had to flip quick, get lucky with Brunson and a couple of pieces to really put themselves in this position. There's still a lot that's left to be done. But I think that, it's not easy in this league to build a championship contender when it's not being led by a homegrown pick. So I think in terms of having to flip this thing over, they've done a good job there. I really do. Okay, back to you, Jalen Brunson. Here we go.
Or signing where it didn't happen, but you really wish it did?
Yeah, a long time ago. I gotta even remember. He ended up playing for the Nets. Right. Oh shoot, great scorer.
That's great scorer.
It wasn't Grant Hill. It was a guy out of Toronto.
Vince Carter.
Vince Carter. Right. Mm-hmm. Vince Carter. Right. It's a great example. Right. We were going to do the trade. Oh, this is old. And the medical team came back and told us that he had a 90% severed Achilles tendon, right? And that it would never hold up, right? And that if once it ruptured, right, he'd never be the same player. And for that reason,
didn't happen.
We didn't do the trade, right?
Wow.
And then Vince Carter went on to have 5, 6, 7 years. I kept waiting for his Achilles tendon to break. It never broke. Nope. No.
He was hanging on for dear life.
Yeah, he was putting in 30, 40 a night. Right? I was like, we certainly dodged a bullet there, didn't we?
So he didn't remember Vince Carter's name, but he didn't remember Larry Brown's name either. So, you know, it is what it is. Hey, man, listen, as you get older, you start to forget things. I'm starting to forget things myself. Now, that was interesting because that made headlines and everything around, you know, the NBA media sphere about the Knicks mistraded for Vince Carter in 2004. Vince Carter was ultimately traded to the New Jersey Nets for like Eric Williams, Aaron Williams, Alonzo Mourning, which is more like a contract thing, and 2 first-round picks. However, in doing some research, because you know this is what we do here in the number one show for the fans by the fans, how accurate or how close were they really to trading for Vince Carter? Now, according to Mark Berman, friend of the program, he's now retired down in South Florida, but still, you know, takes the liberty to trash the team whenever he can. According to Mark Berman, this is December 20th of 2004, New York Post. Carter to the Knicks never had a chance. According to Mark, it said that that Toronto GM Rob Babcock belief that the Nets' pair of first-round picks were key to accepting the offer. And in fact, the Raptors may have just been using Isaiah Thomas to drive up offers elsewhere. The Knicks, because of the Stepien rule, were not permitted to trade that year's first-round pick because they had given up the last year's pick in the Starberry trade. So the Knicks, according to Berman, really didn't have the assets to go get Vince Carter anyway. So I thought that was interesting. That was interesting. Hey, maybe they were entertaining it, but according to Berman, the Knicks really didn't have the assets to go get Vince, and the Nets did. They got the 2 first-round picks out of the deal, and they got him there. So this was just a random interesting quote. This is from 2004. This is kind of like the side note in the New York Post. It says Allen Houston had no problem sitting out the final 7 minutes with the game close. Houston agreed with Lenny Wilkins. His small forward matchup against Matt Harpring was too difficult because his knees aren't strong enough yet to hold him off. It's a tough matchup. You got to get your legs under you at least to hold your ground. I just didn't have it. It's a process for me. This is when Houston had the arthritic knees and he was pretty much cooked. At 2 games over 500, at this point, nobody's worried about that. Allen Houston, Lenny Wilkins, and Matt Harpring in a newspaper article. 10 points in 21 minutes. Ah, man. Hey, Knicks fans, remember these days. Remember these days. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Berman says they didn't have the assets to go get Vince. Okay. All right, what's next that I wanted to get to? Oh, this was the next topic was compartmentalizing fandom. Okay, here we go. This is James Dolan on the Roommates pod, TP the franchise, KnicksFanTV. So to everybody in the chat, hit that thumbs up on the feed, boys. Here we go.
To make these decisions, or
let me go back a little bit.
Merchants must have an merchant.
Let me get at it.
probably get in the way. Like, will there ever a point where you're like, I have to put my fandom aside to make these decisions, or
how do you
Yeah.
compartmentalize that?
Yeah.
Like, how do you push that to the side?
Well, it is what you said, right? Yes, you have to put your fandom aside, right? Otherwise, I mean, you drive yourself nuts. To be honest, but it's what I said before. I mean, the first thing you should realize as an owner is that you don't know the game and the sport like your GMs and your coaches, et cetera. You gotta. That's important,
Yeah.
right? Because if you think you do, your team's in for a very bad year or years.
I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm not saying nothing, but I think that's the first
crazy.
thing. If I was talking to a new owner, that'd be the first thing I said. You think you know basketball, you think you know all this, right? And I'm sure you're pretty smart at it, et cetera, right? But these guys who you hired, right, to do this, spent their whole lives doing it, right? They know it inside and out. Right? They know it better than you, right? So your job as the owner is to support them, right, and help them, through the process by doing things like, okay, right, let's lay out a plan for the next 3 years, and let's talk about how it's going to go, and then keep parroting it back to them, et cetera, and trying to keep them on their own plan. Because everybody gets that, shiny object thing, right, et cetera. And, you have to, that's what you have to guard against. You have to be part of that, the guardrails for that.
So I think this is him. This is, again, reflection time for James Dolan, right? Because from everything that we've heard, from the Knicks to the Sphere, he's hands-on with it. He wants to be locked in. We've all heard about the rumors that, he sidestepped Donnie Walsh, said, I got to get Melo in here now. Damn Timothy Mozgov, put him in the deal too, packed up the kids and get him up out of here. We need Melo here. So I think this is him kind of learning from previous mistakes. As Nostalgic Nick says in the chat, new Dolan. This was a reflection time in this segment. And as he said, now it's time to support the 3-year plan. I think he's talking about Leon now. To support him, give them whatever they need. You need the resources. You need the medical staff. They just hired Casey Smith from Dallas Mavericks, things of that nature. We need to, G League support team, development team, supporting from afar. But I'm going to trust you, Leon, with the plan, and Wes, to get the job done. I think that was him reflecting on past mistakes. And Anthony Parasol in the chat, I'm with you. He says, imagine believing he doesn't care about winning titles. I never believed that for a second. I think he's made blunders. Absolutely. All of that is pretty evident. But to say the guy doesn't care about winning, would you rather have him or would you rather have the lady that's got the Dallas Mavericks right now? Mavericks fans are ready to riot. I never believed that for a second with Dolan. I think he does want to win. And the move just hasn't been right. Let's see if Leon and these guys can get the job done. Okay. All right, so that was a good segment there. All right, now here he is talking about how he got up with Leon Rose, how Leon Rose became part of the family here. Here we go.
All the way through the progression.
Speaking of, you said that you never know basketball as much as your GM or your president or whatever. Would love to hear, to the extent that you can share, like some behind the scenes about how the whole Leon thing came about. Because as three people who've
know what, no one's ever really that I recall. I don't ever recall talking about that.
Because we've owned obviously Jalen's known him since he was a baby. Josh and I have known him. He was both of their agents.
Here's how the Leon thing happened.
We found out when the rest of the world found out. So
right.
I didn't even get a call. Leon was like, "Oh, I'm not your agent anymore." I'm like, "All right, thanks."
Well, look, we were coming out of an era, I think, where we were down that progression. I did a lot of thinking about the team and about the league and et cetera, and how to try and be successful. And it really seemed to me that the difference between the teams that are successful and the ones that are unsuccessful is the talent inside the team, right? You guys, that's the difference, right? The teams that win have great talent, right? And lots of it, et cetera. They also have a plan, et cetera. But the hardest thing to do is particularly in the NBA, is to attract talent, right? To get talent all in one place. So who would be the best guy you could find in order to bring talent to your team? Well, at the time, who was the number one basketball agent in the NBA?
Leon Rose.
Leon Rose. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew Leon. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get Leon Rose to do this.
What was that conversation like?
I'm gonna pause it right there because remember when Leon got here, and this is why I say you gotta get lucky in the game. When Leon got here, we weren't thinking go get Jalen Brunson. Yes, it was about Karl Anthony Towns, but remember, it was about can we get CP3, Embiid, big stars, Kevin Durant, big stars. That's what we were talking about here with the Leon Rose acquisition. And that's what attracted Dolan to Leon Rose. I want the star agent that could go get me players. But this was more on the free agency side, or maybe even the trade side, but it wasn't about go to get Brunson and Hart and Towns, which is still, working well for the team. Dolan was still in the shiny object thing. He just wanted to go get the guy who can go get him, because the past guys couldn't go get him. Anthony Davis, right? So it's just very funny how that plan still never came through to fruition. And in the Embiid case, Knicks are fortunate. So it's just funny. Drafting was never, he never said anything about draft. Or he never said nothing about draft. Forget the kids. get me the shiny objects because we couldn't get them. We couldn't get LeBron. We couldn't get KD and them. You go get them. And he hasn't, but he got his godson, who's turned into a superstar in this league. It's just funny how things work out, man. Very funny how things work out. It's back to Dolan.
Was short. He was ready.
He's like the Knicks or Jalen and Josh?
I actually talked to Wes first, right? No, because those two are like a pair.
West, Worldwide West. We still don't know what he does. He's got the job like Tommy from Martin. We don't know what his job is. He spoke to West first. Think about that. Back to it. Here we go.
Right. Yeah. And Wes like called me back like an hour later. Says, you should do this.
Oh wow.
Was there any part of you a little nervous because he was never in that role before?
Well, I used to work in sales, and one of my favorite things that we used to say in sales is you can't fall off the floor. Right. At that point, we were on the floor.
That's a fair way to put it.
I like that motto.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I remember Leon. When he said, obviously after the news came out, he was like, I didn't know I would want to do this, but this is one place where it's a no-brainer to do it, being in New York. And so, I remember he was excited. I mean, I wasn't excited because don't get to talk to Leon anymore. He's done a great job, and I'm happy for him because I mean, to see him in the element he's in now, he looks so comfortable, and I don't know, he's been doing a great job.
Yeah. So that was their thoughts on Leon. I thought he has been doing a good job as well so far. It's going to be how the next part is hard. The next phase of the plan is hard in terms of putting this championship piece together. But so far, so good. Okay, I think this is the last segment because they get into like a lot of other stuff the leading by example part. I'll get to that. All right, so here's Dolan on how the plan is going with Leon Rose. Here we go.
Yeah, like that wasn't easy, but
where do we sit now relative to that plan that you guys spoke about 3 years ago? Like, how is it veered? How has it stayed the same?
We're kind of there.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I mean that actually, I think Cat was sort of the last piece, and yeah, I mean, think that we're. I mean, I'm not expecting any significant changes, right? But now I think it's all up to these guys and the coach, et cetera, to make it happen, right? I don't know. Do you think we're missing any pieces?
That's a trap question.
I didn't mean it that way.
No. I said this the other day. Like, we have the pieces. Like, we have everything that we need from like a personnel standpoint. Like you said, we just need to put it together, and that takes time, and then that takes chemistry, that takes failure, that takes.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience to kind of go through this, and so we have the personnel. It's just like, how can we just mesh it? We're meshing. I'm not saying we're so disconnected, but like, we still got to get closer and have more chemistry and be more together on the court, and that just comes with time.
And if we can avoid injuries, right? Because that messes up the timeline, et cetera. I mean, just getting Mitch back, right, is big.
Big piece.
Right? I mean, but now, I mean, nobody's played with Mitch for a year, since last May.
Yep.
Right? They got to get it all figured out.
Yeah.
Right? And it's it feels like it's kind of a puzzle where, you change one piece, it changes all the other pieces. Right? So we got to figure all that out.
All right, so that was a big one right there. That was a big one. He pretty much told you he's not expecting any big changes for the foreseeable future. this core is pretty much going to be together. Brunson is here. Hart's not going nowhere. Towns isn't going nowhere. Forget about Towns for Giannis and all of that. Forget about that. You know, even if you think about like Bridges, you think after they just traded 5 picks for Bridges that they just going to flip? What are you going to flip him for? OG, they just paid the dog. What are you going to flip him for? So unless, I don't even know unless situation, because who's the guy really that's going to be out there that can really change this thing where you can afford to deplete your depth for him? Is it Giannis? Like, does a Giannis move make sense? What do you guys think in the chat? Let's keep it a bean. Kevin Durant doesn't, like, I don't see that. At this stage in the game, the KD ship, just like the LeBron ship, that is past, in my opinion. He says that guy in Milwaukee. Okay, so are we trading Cat for Giannis now? And do we know that Giannis is going to request that trade now? And do we know that the Knicks are going to be able to say, here's Karl Anthony Towns for Giannis 1-for-1, when you got, this is what I'm trying to tell you. I can name at least 5 teams in the NBA right now that can say, I'll give you young players and draft picks for Giannis right now. The Milwaukee Bucks would be foolish to just trade Giannis for Karl Anthony Towns 1-for-1. The Knicks would probably be the last team in the league with an enticing offer. They have no young players to offer. They have no draft picks to offer. This is why we can't just be stuck in 2K trades. I don't see that happening. So Dolan knows. And as he said, failure is part of it. So it sounds like he's ready to be patient with this version of the Knicks. And it's like I said, while the core will be intact, if this thing does not work, the first head to fall is going to be Tibbs. Now, a lot of you guys are ready to see that happen right now, right? A lot of you guys are ready to do it right now with 16 games left in the season. But to me, my opinion, that's a next season thing. To me, that's a next season thing. I think the core sticks together. They've got to get the bench right. Because you guys swear this bench just needs a coach, this snap campaign and Landry Shamet into formidable guys. Just look at everybody else's bench, how they're doing. Then they give you 4 points in Golden State. Coach, get the bench together. Coaching change. Then you try to figure out, is there something in the core that we've got to work on? In the meantime, you got to get the kids activated. Kolek, Dadier, Hukporti, McCullers. I'd like to see what the two-way kid can do. Beauchamp. They got another second-round pick. Go get another guard, another big man, another two-guard. Got to get the bench right. You get more money in the salary cap. You go get another salary cap exemption type player. Can you get another DiVincenzo type? Can you get DiVincenzo back? Who knows? Do I think there's a chance of Devo coming back? I mean, he's on an $11 million contract. Like, he would have to take a pay cut, I think, to come back here. But anything's possible. But some of you guys really think that, you know, this bench is just like a new coach can just snap these guys in the put. No. But as Dolan said, it seems like when you move in one piece, everything else shifts. And he's talking about the Towns trade. The bench is the depth is depleted. The depth is depleted, guys. So they've got to get that back. So, but that's why I do agree that, you know, some of the younger guys, we got to see what they look like, man. Kolick, Huckporty. I think McCullers is going to be a next year thing. He's stuck in the G League. And you'll give him another full offseason to get right. So Kolick, McCullough, Huckporty. You get another real veteran. With that exception, as Anthony Parasol says, the cap is going to go up. That's why it's going to take another cycle, right? Then, when you say, okay, we've upgraded the bench now, this should be much better than this year. Now, Tibbs, you got to get this thing done. Or we got to start looking elsewhere. Then we see where we go from there. You know, you may be losing Precious this year. Some of you guys will say, hey, good. But, you know, Precious could be a goner this year. But I say that to say, you know, Dolan, no, he's in lockstep with Leon and the plan. He knows what's going on. All right. Let me see if there's anything more on this part. Here we go. Let's see if anything's more on this part.
You figure it out on the court.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I think the fans, right, as much as they want it, like, you know, every day, right?
Yep.
They are on this journey with you, right? They do see it, right? They do, right? And I mean, I feel it. I feel like the team is growing, and I think the fans see the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree for sure, and they let us know.
Yeah,
They let us know.
They definitely know.
Can you even go into a restaurant in New York?
That's when they talk about I can go here and, you know, with the fans and stuff. Okay, so that part. Yeah, I thought that was a good conversation there. And then the last part, he just kind of bigs up Brunson for leading by example. I don't want to really get into that. That's not really much to react to. But they do talk about, you know, it's kind of refreshing to see Brunson leading by example, whereas in the past, he does go in on Carmelo a little bit, saying that, you know, he didn't really have a player who can elevate the team and make the team better. That was basically what that last part I wanted to get into. And then he talked about the sphere and ownership and things of that nature. But that was kind of the bread and butter of the interview. I thought it was a good interview. And like I said, it was refreshing to see Dolan do a platform like this that didn't seem scripted. Every other time he's done interviews in the past, he's come out with like prepared statements. You got to come out authentic. And he went on their podcast. I thought that put him in a good light. Try to change the perception of him. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take this team winning a championship or getting to the finals at least before his reputation really changes. Anthony Parasol says Dolan should do a few interviews a year. He would be more relatable to the fan base if he gives it up a lot in his interviews. If he did, he gives up a lot in his interviews. Yeah, he should come to KnicksFanTV, right? He should come through to the #1 show for the fans by the fans. I think so. Come through. You guys already think I'm on a payroll, so we might as well, you know, just make it official. Bring Jimmy D up to KFTV.